All right, hello again, and welcome to another Red Cloud webinar. My name is Kobe Kushner. I'm a mining analyst here at Red Cloud, and today we're going to be talking about silver, maybe some gold, maybe some copper, lead, and zinc with Orex Minerals. With us today is Mr. Ben Whiting. He is the president, CEO, and director of Orex Minerals. He comes from a technical background. He's a PGO. He has over 40 years of experience and has won several awards for his work. So in the Q&A session at the end of this webinar, please do not be shy to pick his brain on all things geology. And just a quick intro here from me. Orex is primarily focused on Mexico, although they also have a gold project out in BC. Mexico has a long mining history. It's currently the largest silver producer in the world, one of the largest producers of gold, copper, zinc, and others. And if you're not paying attention, gold price is right now at an 8-month high. It's back above $1,900 an ounce. Meanwhile, silver has been holding steady at 24 to 24.5 bucks. This has put the gold to silver ratio back at levels just under 80. It's about 78.5 right now. A year ago, it was in the mid 60s. I could blabber on about this, but we're not here for me. We're here for Ben, and we're here for Orex Minerals. So during today's webinar, Ben is going to provide us with an overview and an outlook. And when he's done the presentation, we'll move on to the Q&A session. A reminder that you can type your questions into the comment box at any time. But as always, we have to run through the fine print. So during today's webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to the forward-looking statements outlined on page 2 of the company's corporate presentation, which we will see in a bit. For Red Cloud Securities Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures on Orex Minerals. And with that, I'll now turn it over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, and it's good to meet you here again. And we'd like to thank the people at Red Cloud for hosting these webinars, because it's been a difficult time to get out and meet people, but the way to do it online is a good way to handle it. I'll be turning on a screen share at the moment, and the screen share will bring up a presentation, and the presentation will go to slideshow from the beginning. It's always good to start from the beginning. So here it is, gold and silver exploration projects. I'll focus on the Mexican projects first, but we do have that smaller project in British Columbia, which is under consideration with confidentiality agreements with the company right now as we speak. Forward-looking statements. Indeed, when I talk about a drilling program that we're planning, that would be a good example of a forward-looking statement. So the technical team at Belcara, both technical and financial, are a group of us who have junior exploration companies and have had success in the past. La Preciosa silver gold deposit in Durango is where we were chosen as explorers of the year. For that discovery. We also have the Belarus discovery in Mexico. Over in Sweden, we brought a project from 600,000 ounces of gold up to 2.4 million ounces with our joint venture partner at Belcara Group's Orex Minerals project. And so you can see that the talent on various companies in our group can be called upon to work with each company. I'd like to thank all of my colleagues that are spread out right now. The colleagues here are examples. David Gunning is one of the mining engineers who's joined us fairly recently, and he brings another perspective on production side as well. So the company itself has a strong institutional following. Ingalls and Snyder from New York, U.S. global investors in Texas. Eric Sprott is certainly involved in many precious metal companies, this company included. Management takes part in the financings as well. You can see here by about 15% is held by management. And when I mentioned Barsele Gold Deposit in Sweden, it's a joint venture with Agnico Eagle. Orex is the parent company that Barsele spun out of. So the shareholders at that time ended up with shares in both companies. And Orex still holds a 2% net smelter return on the Barsele gold deposit in Sweden. So it's part of the asset package of Orex Minerals. So the three projects that we currently have, two of them are in Mexico with joint ventures. You'll see the names Pan American Silver and Fresnillo. Fresnillo is the world's largest silver producer, and they're the joint venture partner on the Coneto project, which is the one I'll start to talk about. And then the Pan American Silver is the world's second largest silver producer, and they're our joint venture partners on Sandra project. Jumping Josephine is 100% Orex. Into Mexico, there's a central part of Mexico and north central. The state of Durango is right in the heart of the silver trend. And the silver trend that stretches through here, you can see a few of the companies. Fresnillo, the biggest silver mining area, along with Mag Silver, has their Juanicipio right beside Fresnillo, would be on that. That's in neighboring Zacatecas state. La Colorada is Pan American Silver. La Paria is First Majestic. San Sebastian is Hecla Mining. You can see where La Preciosa, it's a dot on there, and I believe Vino has just acquired La Preciosa. Coneto is right in the heart of this state. As you move further north, you see Guanaceví. Guanaceví is Endeavor Silver, and they have just acquired La Pedrería from SSR Mining. We have the Sandra project, which is similar in style to the La Pedrería model. So all of these major silver camps and districts are right in this silver trend, and that's where our projects are. Beautiful country, just a beautiful high plain area. We're at about 2,000 meters elevation. Where I'm taking this photograph, that's the village of Coneto de Comonfort, and the hill on the horizon there is La Bufa zone, has mineralization on that. Our claims go an equal distance further to the north in that direction beyond that hill, and twice that distance behind me in this photograph. So picture this beautiful countryside with a lot of mesquite trees and ranchers, and it's a mining tradition. Coneto has a long mining tradition in this camp as well. So the Coneto mining camp, it's a window into the lower volcanic succession. The lower volcanic series is dominated by andesites with some altered rhyolites, and then the upper volcanics is a time difference of these tertiary volcanics. Most of the mineralization occurs right in the lower volcanics and some a little bit into the lower units of the upper volcanics. This window shows a place where you can see the lower volcanics, and on a field trip down there, I can take a person to put their hand right on the contact between these major successions in volcanism in Mexico as we drive down to tour the property. But a beautiful stretch. You've got about from northwest to southeast about 17 kilometers and about 4 kilometers wide as this window into the lower volcanics. The Coneto camp itself, it's about 100 kilometers north of the city of Durango, which is a major capital city with a lot of services as well. Fresnillo is the partner. We own 45% of it within Orex. Fresnillo has earned their 55%. The Coneto mining camp goes back over 450 years of mining history. The conquistadors came through here. Coronado was one of Cortez's lieutenants, and he was involved in this area. So the history is certainly of note. But the area has, although there's mining that goes back a long ways, usually went down to about water table. And where they would find these veins and mine the high grade, they had trouble below the water table. That technology issue has certainly been surpassed with modern day equipment and pumping technology that goes on. Most recently, SRK Consulting, the international consulting group, have completed the very first NI 43-101 resource estimate for the Coneto project. So we now have tons and grade for reporting purposes. Okay. Here are a few examples of some drill hole intercepts that appear on the Coneto project. A variety of veins, they're steeply dipping, Loma Verde, Impulsora, La Bufa, Santo Nino, Durazno. These are all veins on the property, and there are over 50 veins on the property, but we have tested a dozen of them, and we've done a resource on about 6. So what we also do note that is we have mineralization at surface, and we have mineralization that goes deeper, but we don't know where the bottom of this system is either. Note that Santo Nino intercept there is very high grade. It's vertically about 300 meters below the surface. That high grade was 2.7 meters of true width of 840 grams of silver equivalent. So it was both gold and silver were significant in that hit, and also has some base metals by the time you get down to there. You'll also see that Durazno is showing numbers that are below the 300-meter vertical as well. And so we don't know where the bottoms of these structures are. One of the things that we did this past season is metallurgy. We did it on 7 samples, 2 in the Loma Verde and 5 others, and the results were excellent. So over 93% of the gold came out of the 5 zones that we did the testing, the highest at 98.5% recovery. Silver was still being extracted after the 96th hour of the cyanide digestion, but the numbers are generally in the 75 to 85% silver recovery is where we're expecting to hit for those. And these are the numbers that were used for the resource assessment when we're evaluating where the dollar value would be for a cutoff. So far we've got 106 drill holes for 38,000 meters of drilling on 12 of the targets. These man-portable rigs work very efficiently, and they have a very low impact for the environment. So what the core looks like when you're up in the upper levels and you've got surface weathering, this would be a Loma Verde core. You'll see that there's a mixture of gold and silver. That bottom sample there is 6.34 grams of gold with 142 grams of silver. If you go deeper into the system, this is one sample that's in Santo Nino, and it is beautiful core. That's core that tells the geologist that the fluids were boiling at this point. And when fluids boil, they can no longer carry the minerals, and so they precipitate out. And this spot was precipitating gold and silver at very high grades, and the copper, lead, and zinc were starting to show up as well. So you can see in the sample there's chalcopyrite, there's galena, there's sphalerite, there's acanthite. Probably some of the gold is in combination with the silver. The resource estimate on 6 zones, Impulsora, Promontorio, Descubridora, Loma Verde, La Bufa, and Santo Nino are the ones that we've done the majority of drilling on. Loma Verde is nearly vertical, so it shows up a little smaller here. Impulsora and Promontorio dip a little bit more, so on a plan view it shows as wider. But Loma Verde has certainly been the best hits so far as a continuous structure. First inferred mineral resource estimate. What we've got, if you convert it into a gold equivalent, we've got 538,000 ounces of gold equivalent on the property. So that's a very good start as the first resource estimate on this project. All of these veins are within a close range, within say 4 kilometers of each other. So gives you an idea of what the distribution would be. 286,000 ounces of gold and over 19 million ounces of silver would be the combination of the gold and silver on the property. Okay, now we'll move a little further to the northwest. We're moving to the Sandra Silver Gold Project. Beautiful rolling terrain as well. This is the joint venture with Pan American Silver and Orex Minerals, located just north of the town of Tepehuanes in Durango State. We have a big land package there as well, almost 7,000 hectares of land, or 17,800 acres of mineral concessions. What I point out here is a little green dot in the middle of this screen. That green dot is the drill rig. On that hillside, there are 64 drill holes, and that's the Belarus discovery that we made a few years ago on this property, is right at surface in this location. And you can see how minor our impact is for the environment as we clean up as we go along. So it's man portable. We use some ATVs in there, and then we recontour any of the paths and bring it back to a very good situation for the local ranchers. So the joint venture, we brought in Pan American as a joint venture partner when they bought out our junior partner from before. We had Canisil Resources was the junior partner when we made the Belarus deposit discovery. But Pan American had claims to the north as well. And so they bought out Canisil, and now the joint venture is a Pan American and Orex joint venture. I point out where the Belarus deposit is in the southeast. There's Mina San Francisco is a little artisanal mine. And as you head towards Cerro Rojo, there are also veins over Maria Fernanda, but it shows as a fairly large caldera structure in this area. And so you've got nested calderas and intrusions. So you've got rhyolite domes. You've got all these really cool geological features in here. What I point out, and that may not be on the website yet, but I'll bring up something like this, is a forward-looking statement. This is a phase 1 and phase 2 proposed drilling for 2022. There are lots of structures on this property, and these structures, the Belarus is in that southeast part. Belarus, as you move going towards Belarus Norte, there's Marta, there's San Francisco, a little artisanal mine, and we're planning to drill some of these other structures. But a place like Marta, right at surface, there was 70 centimeters of 1.98 kilograms of silver per ton right at Marta. Never been drilled. So there are structures that have not yet been tested. A major structure that was on different claims at one time is cutting through northwest southeast. It's the one that's marked Santo Nino, Rosario, Isabella, Paola. That's a large structure that we think is all part of one system that cuts through in that direction. There are also these east-northeast structures as well, and maybe the crossings are where the important parts are going to be. Give you some examples of the Belarus deposit area, selected drilling. Our very first drill hole that we put down in December of 2015 was 61 meters, starting right from surface, hitting 359 grams of silver per ton. So true thickness was 43 meters. Beautiful, sitting right at surface. So this deposit itself was the one that we released for the Belarus deposit. Its resource estimate came out at 33 million ounces of silver in a tabular deposit in a crystallithic tuff. So the fluids probably flowed laterally and precipitated in a very porous volcanic rock that was made out of originally ash when it formed and then turned into rock as a tuff. A tuff is formed from volcanic ash. So this is what it looks like in a couple of cross sections. Its average is over 20 meters thick. It sits right at surface. Stripping ratio, if you get around to this part of it, we're a long way from anything like that, but stripping ratio for this part would be less than a 1-to-1. So it's a resource that is set aside, but there's a lot more to be found on this project. This is what the material looks like in the Sandra Escobar mineralization. This would be for the Belarus area. You do get some stringer mineralization. It gives you some high-grade spikes. Like the lower left is 1.2 kilograms of silver per ton. Some samples that look like concrete. You've got that upper left one is 254 grams per ton in a gray crystallithic tuff. There was no pyrite there, so there is no gossan. It doesn't show as bright red in this area. Other parts of the property have more sulfides. Here you're looking at more oxides and hydroxides. So this is what the Sandra project looks like as a vista. The little pickup truck is on the Burrow zone of the Belarus deposit, and that's right on that deposit area. The area in between, as you're heading towards that red hill in the background, that's your Cerro Rojo area, and that is all on the claims as well. So right up to Cerro Rojo, which is incorporated into the project. The little independent San Francisco operation, the third-party one, is mining sulfides, and they're hand cobbing some very high grades. So there is possible temperature change as you're heading towards that northwest. We're ready to go. We've got the core shack ready to go on that property. Moving up into British Columbia, when we acquired another company in the past, it had an asset that we were able to work, and we have a 43101 resource there. It's a small gold deposit in the West Kootenay region, very close to Castlegar and Trail. So it's in that part of southeastern British Columbia. There, we've got about 64,000 ounces of gold sitting at surface. That particular one, it doesn't really fit the pattern of the other projects that are in the company. So we're looking at either optioning it or selling it to another company. And there are companies that are looking at it as we speak. Okay. So mineral resource summary. So we have joint ventures. So we own a portion of these. So far, what we've got is indicated resource and an inferred resource. That you've got ounces of gold and ounces of silver. So if you're looking at silver equivalent, we've got about 76 million ounces of silver equivalent, or nearly 36 million ounces of silver equivalent that are held within Orex as our share. So a little bit into the indicated and mostly under the inferred category. Each one of these has a technical report available. So current activities. So excellent metallurgical test results and a maiden mineral resource estimate were recently released for Coneto. SRK, the consulting firm, recommends a $6.4 million exploration program to move forward with Coneto, and that's being discussed with Fresnillo as we go forward. The Sandra project, mapping and lithogeochemical sampling project, has been completed. We've tied in the claims on both sides so that there's a common geological records. And a 2022 diamond drilling program is getting set to commence. Reports have been submitted to the Mexican government for environmental assessment. So the environmental assessment is called Informe Preventivo, and it goes to SAMRNAT, the government agency, the national government agency that looks at that. When they get back to us on that, we'll know more about our timing for the start of the drilling. As things go forward, we've got community engagement. We do social and environmental programs. We fixed a lot of the dams that were in their area for the ranchers in this particular area. And so we have that as an ongoing program. And we're also interested in adding another significant project, and I think Mexico would make sense with this portfolio. So we're reviewing new property submissions. Those are underway. So summary, 3 projects, strong mining jurisdictions, joint venture partnerships where they know what we're doing and that we've done it before with major companies. We've had a presence in Durango State for quite a long time. We've got an office in the city of Durango, and we've had a presence there for going on 20 years now. Strong technical team with the ability to find deposits and to work deposits to add value to deposits. So we've been able to deliver, and I really sincerely say there is more to be discovered. I'd like to thank you very much. I'll move away from the shared screen, and then we can move back for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Ben, for the very informative presentation. And we will now start the Q&A portion of this webinar. Just a reminder to everyone on the line that you could type your questions into the chat box at any time. So I've noticed that it's quite common in the Vancouver mining scene to have these groups of companies, such as the Discovery Group, the Oxygen Capital Group, and Orex is part of the Belcara Group, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So maybe give us some background on what the Belcara Group is and what does being inside a group mean? Why would a company want to be part of a group?
If you have a small exploration company on its own, how many experienced and talented professionals can you bring on board to guide that company? Especially if you've got a startup, if you're starting up a new company. So what we do have is access to skilled geologists and engineers to execute the projects on these companies. We also have in the financial side more connections because within our group we know more people, and we also have the ability to bounce ideas off of how a particular project could be approached and how it could be framed. So discovery works better if you have the ability to call upon people very quickly. So if I need some geological assistance on a particular project, I can call Art Freeze, who was a longtime Cominco and Goldcorp geologist, and his connections through Mexico, throughout Latin America, are superb. If I want somebody that's more hands-on, that's a very talented geologist, we've got Dale Britliff is with our group, and he's been working more with the Silver Viper up in Sonora, but he's certainly available to do consultation as a technical advisor to Orex. So you can see how you get a larger pool of talent for each company by doing it that way.
And do you all share an office?
We do, although these days a lot of people have been working from their home offices. You can see my home office here. There's the Mexican flag and Canadian flag right up on my bookshelf. But we do have an office in Durango. There's an office space in Sweden that's for the Swedish projects, and the head office is in Vancouver on Hastings Street.
Okay, and I imagine there's financial synergies that happen by sharing
Yes,
office space and talent as well.
very, very much.
Yeah, so I guess moving on, for jumping Josephine, you mentioned you're maybe looking at vending that off because it does not fit the pattern of the rest of your portfolio. So is that more due to the commodity focus at Josephine, that is gold, as opposed to silver, or is it more so because of the location?
I think when people are looking at projects, a few years ago, the ones in Sweden were as part of Orex as well. And people often will look at a project, they'll say, oh, you've got some great projects in Mexico, but do they have mining in Sweden? And then that came from an actual portfolio manager in California. And then I talked to somebody in Zurich or Munich, and they say, oh, we just love that Swedish project up in the Skellefteå Trend, northern Sweden. But Mexico, isn't that tequila and mariachi music? And do they have mining down there? And so the fellow in Munich didn't really didn't give value to a portfolio that is in too many jurisdictions. Right, so that's the way I see it. It's more of a jurisdictional thing that investors tend to pick a company that is solid in one jurisdiction. Our background in Northern Europe goes back a long ways as well. In the 1980s, I worked for Boliden. I did a job in the very same trend, the Skellefteå Trend of northern Sweden back in the late 1980s. And so our contacts and our information on that region is still strong as well. But within our group, we've worked around the world. Whether you pick a region, and probably somebody in our group has been there.
Right. Okay, so in line with that, what can you give us some hints as to the M&A that might be to come? You mentioned that there's a potential acquisition. You're looking in Mexico. Maybe where exactly is it, and is it also primarily silver, or is it more of a gold project or a different commodity?
The one I'd say, if I looked at the property submissions files we have on the desks right now. They tend to be precious metal focused. There is some base metal in there. A lot of them are epithermal, the Mexican style epithermal silver and gold systems. But many of those, if you go down into their roots, they move into skarns. And so if you were standing on Pan American's La Colorada, it's an active mining project for silver with some gold credits, but their newest zone of discovery beneath the existing mine is a polymetallic skarn. And it's a big one. It looks a lot like the San Martin mine in Mexico. And so that mine's probably going to go 40, 50 years more because it's looking like it's really taking off. So there are variable types of deposits. There are also porphyry systems in Mexico as well. Um, I would say that we're probably not going to be heading into the southern part. We're not going to go down in Guerrero and Chiapas, but simply because of security issues, sometimes that's where you have more of those issues at this time. Things are very comfortable in Durango and Zacatecas and Guanajuato and Chihuahua and Sonora. Those are all places where you can run mining projects with very little problems.
Yeah, I was just reading about what was the company, Alden Minerals, that had their concessions revoked, and they weren't in any of those states, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe they were in Oaxaca,
Okay.
which is in the south, as I was mentioning. So, I like Oaxaca. In fact, it's some beautiful places down there. But northern Mexico, I think, understands mining better than southern Mexico as a culture. There is more activity. There are people in each of the towns who have worked in the mining industry or are associated or have a family member who've worked in the mining industry.
Right. And I guess more of a geology question, but just given our audience here, I'm not sure how many people are geologists. So if you wouldn't mind just giving a brief overview of what do you mean by an epithermal system and the possibility of there being a skarn at the root of the system, and what are the differences between these two types of deposits?
Okay, many deposits are structurally controlled. You've got to have a conduit to bring fluids into an area. If you have an intrusion, like a granite or a granodiorite intrusion, and those will often be a heat source, and they'll set up convecting cells of fluids, of groundwater that will percolate through the rocks. And hot fluids carry minerals. If they're under pressure, like your pressure cooker in your kitchen, you can have fluids that are at higher temperature. Right? When you take the pressure off your pressure cooker, then water boils at 100 degrees at surface. Well, different confining pressures can affect fluids as well. So the fluids start and they're carrying gold and silver with them, and they start going up through some cracks or into a brecciated or porous unit. And at some point, maybe the pressure gets released because of some structural shift, like maybe a little bit of a fault with some movement. Pressure drops. The fluids can no longer carry metals in solution, so they precipitate out into minerals in the wall rocks adjacent to those cracks. So there'll be the selvages and envelopes of the cracks will start to get mineralized. And this can happen multiple times. So you get these pulses of mineralization. And if they all start becoming a crack and heal, a crack and heal, a crack and heal, you can get a deposit built up in that location. An epithermal system means that it happened at relatively shallow depths in the Earth's crust. It's like your epidermis on your skin. So it's the epithermal. And if you go deeper, you're into a mesothermal. So people talk about mesothermal deposits. Those are ones that are formed at quite a bit greater depths. Skarns tend to have an alteration of the wall rocks, and that alteration can lead to replacement by minerals, and they can be tabular or they can be very odd shaped, but they will often be polymetallic, and they'll carry your copper, lead, zinc, silver, gold as skarns. A good skarn in Durango that you'll see is Southern Silver has Cerro Las Manitas, and they just put out news release recently. That is a skarn style mineralization. It's also in Durango. So you can see that the same kinds of mineralization can occur in this prolific belt.
Interesting. Well, thanks for the lesson there. This 2% NSR that you have on Barcelli, can you sell that to a third party, or is it exclusively available to Agnico?
Right now, they have a right of first refusal. And that right of first refusal, if I recall correctly, is a $5 million right of first refusal.
Okay.
So if you decided to sell it and they offered the $5 million, if somebody else offers more than that, and they decide they're not ready to move in that direction, well, who knows? It could be worth quite a bit more. The further
Just
that
remind us, how many ounces are there?
at that project right now, we're at about 2.4 million ounces.
Okay.
The structure that's only in the what they call the main zone, the CAS or the Central Avan and Shirison zone. But we've also found material in Risberget about 5 kilometers away. So the whole structure is about 8 kilometers. That the area between Risberget and the main zones has not been drilled fully. And we also know that the mineralization drops below where that resource is for Barcelay. I'm making a pitch for Barcelay during an Orex presentation, but these are related companies, and because Orex has an interest in Barcelay. But we don't know where the bottom is. We do know that some deeper drill holes have hit it about a kilometer down, but the resource estimate is only in the top 450 meters of this structure. So it's an orogenic gold deposit. So during a major orogeny cracking the rocks, it's disseminated gold hosted in granodiorite intrusion and some in the volcanics.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine a 2% NSR on a 1 million ounce deposit would raise some eyebrows. So, you got 2.4 million ounces, right? So,
and I think it's going to go much bigger by the time it's explored fully. Now, that's a forward-looking statement. Would I be surprised if it tops 5 million ounces? I would not be surprised.
Okay, so we have people asking about your cap structure. And first off, to give you a difficult question here, Ben, can you address the options that were recently priced at 10 cents a share?
We had not issued options for quite a while. We had a new director on board, and that was at market price at that time. So we didn't go higher than or lower than market price for any of those. But it was a small issue. We're well within our option plan that was approved by the directors. We still have options that have not been issued yet that we've hold back on because we don't see a need. So if we needed somebody doing some investor relations or some deal where we needed some options as part of it, then we still have some cushion. But we don't have a lot of options that are out there right now.
Yeah. And, just remind us again, how much does management own in Orex right now?
We own about 15%. We also see that our joint venture partner, Fresnillo, owns about 3%. And that was from our initial deal with the Coneto project, as they bought in on one of the financings of Orex. Those shares, as far as I know, are sitting in a drawer in Mexico City. So, Fresnillo is such a big company that they don't actively play in the market for a lot of these things. But that is certainly showed some respect for our group that they bought in. And Fresnillo rarely does joint ventures. I believe they've had 2 over the past couple of years, and one was Mag Silver, the other one was Orex.
Right. And how much cash? Just remind us again, how much cash do you have right now? And what is your budget for drilling in 2022? And you think you'll see any drilling at Coneto?
We have about $3.8 million in the bank account right now. That will cover our current commitments, certainly. But what we would, for Sandra, will be responsible for 40% of the budget, and it will be broken up into phases, so decision phases that will be approved with Pan American Silver. I don't see that going over $1 million for us, and what I also see is with Coneto. Coneto, we will be reviewing how that deposit really fits within Fresnillo's portfolio. They're so focused on major deposits that it could be that Coneto would be available to another company that's a mid-sized or smaller silver producer where it would make more of a difference. Right now, it's over 500,000 ounces of gold equivalent. So what's that, about 37, 38 million ounces of silver equivalent. But does that move the needle for a company with the billions and billions of operation revenue that's coming in from for Fresnillo? And so we've had these discussions with them, and it may be that we'll make both of our interests available at some point for a mid-tier to consider it. So it doesn't, these are strategic decisions that are both on our side, how can we help Orex, but also on Fresnillo's side is this nice project, does it really meet their needs? So,
And with that, just remind us again, what's the current ownership structure of all your projects?
For Jumping Josephine, 100%. For Coneto, it's 55% is Fresnillo, 45% is Orex, and Fresnillo is the operator. For Sandra project, 60% for Pan American Silver, 40% for Orex, and Orex, the minority shareholder, is the operator. So Pan American recognizes that we know how to explore in this area of Mexico, and so they've asked us to carry on as operators.
Okay, thanks. And we have a question here. What percentage does Sprott own?
Say again?
What percentage of your shares outstanding does Sprott own? I assume they're referring to Eric.
Yes, yeah, they are referring to Eric. I'd have to look back. I believe he bought in at maybe 4%, something like that. He's not a reporting shareholder.
Okay.
Which, do you get? Is it over 10% that you have to start to report? So he's not a reporting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, and with that, maybe just leave us on, why should we be paying attention to Orex Minerals in 2022? Just one final, somewhere to leave it off.
To me, I see that people are biting at the bit. Right now, Orex is at one of its lower points in its share structure. I think there's an old expression, it's called buy low, sell high, that maybe this is the time that people should take a serious look at Orex and what we can do to monetize our assets and to also move the company forward. As the COVID restrictions start to diminish, then we will certainly have more activity in the field at examining new opportunities than we've had over 2020 and 2021. I do thank all of the people that have worked with us, our consultants that we've had in Mexico. A lot of our work's been done through consultants that we've known for a long time. Dante Aguilar's team, he's an ex-Goldcorp fellow who started his own consulting firm, GES. And I've known him for 18 years. And so I know the quality of his work. But I haven't seen him in a couple of years. We haven't had the chance to go down and check out projects with the owners of projects a lot of the time. So many things have been moving slowly over the past 2 years. I expect that 2022 and going forward is going to be much more active.
Right, and I guess we'll leave it there. So thanks for that, Ben. That was a great presentation, and thanks for joining us. You know, it's always fun to have people that have strong technical backgrounds on these webinars. And to our viewers, if you want to learn our thoughts on Orex Minerals, as well as the other companies that we watch, we do publish all of our research on our website. It's totally free of charge. And a reminder that our next webinar will take place tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Taylor Combaluzier will be sitting down with Grid Metals. Again, that's Wednesday, February 23rd, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day, and thanks again, Ben.
Thank you very much, and hats off to the team at Red Cloud.